So, welcome to today's pod and blog with me, my friend that runs Welledge in Old Town. And with me today, I have one of my dear mentors, Dr. Pete Goldman. And you are on the west coast of US. And you are the founder of the Zone School of Healing, which we're going to get to know more about. Which, I'm so looking forward. We're going to talk about your journey as a chiropractor, and how you bringing Dr. Fleet, which we see on the picture behind you, and the promise of the department, the founder of chiropractic, into the profession, but also out into the public. Yeah, out there. Because you have a beautiful way of reaching results, but also to explain how people can heal from the inside out, which is the promise of chiropractic. So let's tell yourself your journey into chiropractic, and also how that relates to martial arts. And I mean, you are very consistent in what you practice and what you teach. So your strengths as a chiropractor and as a practitioner.
Because of the connection, I had a little hard time hearing the last question.
Yeah, so I would like you to tell your story to becoming a chiropractor, and how you got into contact with concept therapy, Dr. Fleet's teaching, and how that's evolved into you now bringing this out into the profession and into other people that's learning to.
No problem. Concepts. Okay.
Cool.
Okay. So to answer that question, I was born and raised in New York City. And I was born into a very naturally oriented family. Grew up in a medical atmosphere at all. I grew up in a very naturally oriented atmosphere. And as I grew up, again, in New York City, as I grew up, although I loved natural healing, the chiropractic I was exposed to, it never occurred to me to do it as any kind of job or profession or work. I just liked it. I don't come from a family of doctors. I come from a family of business people. So my father, my uncles, my cousins, we're all very successful business people in business and investment and Wall Street, things like that. So that's the influence I had and the path I was interested in taking. I was an economics major in college. I didn't think I would do anything in doctoring. Then I graduated college. I went to college in Boston. When I came back to New York City, when I graduated, I worked for a few years in New York City in business. But I always had chiropractic in my mind, and I liked it quite a bit. So anyway, so I thought to myself, maybe I'll be a chiropractor. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do that. Now, what I didn't know much about the bigger picture of chiropractic. I didn't know there was 300 different techniques. I didn't know some chiropractors focused on certain things and other chiropractors focused on others. I didn't know anything except what I experienced from my chiropractor, who I had been going to since I was a little child. And it turns out that my chiropractor was a direct student of Dr. Thurman Fleet, but I just thought that's how chiropractic was. I didn't know there was anything else that chiropractors did. So, of course, Dr. Thurman Fleet was a spectacular healer. He was in San Antonio, Texas, and he did what he did in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, etc. It's an incredible healer. I think if someone researches healers and doctors of the last 2,000 years, I don't think you're going to find many better healers than Dr. Fleet. And I'm just talking on results. I'm not talking about technique or philosophy. I'm saying what this guy could do. I don't know anyone else who did it. So he was the teacher, Dr. Fleet, who I have a picture of right there. he was the teacher of my chiropractor. So that's just what I thought chiropractic was. Anyway, so after I worked in New York for a few years, I decided I'm going to be a chiropractor. So I asked my chiropractor, where should I go to chiropractic school? Because there's chiropractic schools all over the place. And he said to me, and a lot of chiropractors probably won't like hearing this, but he said to me, they're all terrible. Every chiropractic school is horrible. They have no idea how healing works. They don't understand anything. Just get your degree. Just go somewhere and get your degree. So he said, really what you could do is look at all the cities that chiropractic schools are in and just pick a city that you find tolerable. So being a New Yorker, you know, we don't find many cities tolerable. But anyway, I said, oh, Atlanta, I think I could tolerate Atlanta. So I picked the school in Atlanta for no other reason than it just seemed like a decent city to go to school in. The truth is, it wasn't such a good city. But anyway, that's just my opinion. Anyway, so I went to Atlanta and I saw very quickly that the chiropractic being taught there was not what I was familiar with. And I'll be specific. What I heard philosophically in the school was, you know, chiropractic is for much more than neck and back pain. Chiropractic has all these possibilities. I heard that. I kept hearing from the teachers, the speakers, you know, I heard about all these amazing things chiropractic could do. I heard that. Of course, I already knew this because I knew my chiropractor who could do anything pretty much. But I kept hearing them talk about this philosophy. But then I noticed when I started visiting their practices, I'd visit their practices. And I noticed that 99% of the people in their waiting room was there for neck and back pain. So I started wondering, why is it that they come to speak to us about how chiropractic can fix anything? And meanwhile, none of them do it. Now, don't get me wrong. If someone practices for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, I mean, of course, they're going to get their miracles here and there. It's going to, you know, if you adjust enough people, not even miracles, but, you know, you're going to have someone maybe come in for low back pain, but as you work with them, their digestive condition heals. Or maybe someone comes in for neck pain, and as you adjust them, their immune system might heal. I mean, of course, these things can happen. But I saw there was no consistency. And more important, there was no confidence. There was no confidence because here's what I observed. Some chiropractor would come speak to the students about chiropractic can fix anything. But if someone was really unfortunately sick, and they went to that chiropractor and told them, no confidence at all, none. Maybe they would say, well, look, let's align your spine, let's relieve your subluxations. It can only help. But they had no confidence. They had no idea how to give a healing image, etc. So I called my chiropractor back in New York. And I said, you're right, this is ridiculous. He said, look, don't make any trouble. Just get your degree, just whatever they tell you, just put it on the test. Just spend your 4 years there, get your degree, and I'll show you how healing works. Don't worry about it. Now, with that said, that was the guy. Now I'm in Atlanta. That guy's back in New York, where I'm from. But then he tells me that there's another chiropractor who's a disciple of Dr. Fleet, who's also been practicing like 40 years, like my guy. This guy was in Georgia, near my school, not affiliated with my school, but near my school. And I called him up, and when I was new there, and his wife said, well, he's kind of semi-retired, you know, he has an office from the house, but he's been practicing for 40 years. He learned from Dr. Fleet too. So she said, come over on Sunday. So I drove there on Sunday, about 45 minutes from the school. And he was explaining things to me. I didn't understand what he was talking about. I mean, I was brand new. I didn't know what was going on. But he's explaining things to me. I liked him a lot. I liked him. And he gave me a great adjustment, and he explained to me how healing works. I don't think I could really process it. And then I thought to myself, well, that was a nice experience. I got to hang out with this guy who's clearly a healing master. And that's it. You know, I'll say goodbye and thank you. And that's that. But when I was leaving that Sunday afternoon, he said, you come back next Sunday. He told me, you come back next Sunday. So I went every Sunday for 4 years.
Oh.
So there's a saying, you know, at the feet of the master, you know, at the feet of the master. So I sat at the feet of the master for 4 years, every Sunday for hours. I go there Sunday morning at 8 in the morning. I would leave at, 5 p.m. and just ask him questions. He was almost 80 years old.
Oh.
And he learned from Dr. Fleet. But what I noticed, this is the next part of the story. So I'm learning Dr. Fleet's what was called zone therapy. It was called zone therapy then, zone therapy. And I'm learning it, but I didn't want to block out other possibilities. So I said to myself, hey, even though I'm going there every Sunday and learning from this guy, and even though I'm doing that, at my school, they're teaching different techniques, Gonstead technique, network, upper cervical, CBP, motion palpation, Thompson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I said to myself, I don't want to prevent myself from maybe learning something better. So even though I went every Sunday, they had what's called adjusting clubs at my school. So they would, whatever. So I would go and I would study Gonstead. And I mean, I must have gotten 50 network adjustments. I received them. I must have gotten, 30 or 40 upper cervical, knee, chest, BJ Palmer style adjustments. I explored motion palpation, CBP, Gonstead, and what I realized was interesting. I saw that the techniques all thought they were the best, which is okay. I don't fault them for that. It's okay to think that what you do is the best, which is probably why you do it. But what I noticed is they said all the other ones were garbage, which I thought was interesting. Because when I went to, let's say, the Gonstead Club, and I think they don't do leg checks, they said, Thompson, which is a technique which relies on leg checks, I said, Thompson is ridiculous. These leg checks are worthless. And I started thinking, Then I went to the Thompson Club. I said, look what the leg length means, Then I saw Don Harrison, who was the founder of CBP, Chiropractic Biophysics. I saw him speak at my school. I sat right in the front row. I was sat right in the front row. I was just a few feet away from him. And Don Harrison said, every other technique besides CBP is complete nonsense. And he explained why they're just worthless garbage. He showed, that there's no such thing as intersegmental subluxation. He says there's only global subluxation. And he said, if someone has, like, let's say a scoliotic neck like this from the front, and some Gonstead doctor says, oh, it's C5. He said, that's ridiculous. It's C1 through T1. We have to move the whole thing over. And he said the BJ Palmer's upper cervical is just total fantasy world nonsense. He said there's a proprioceptive bed by the atlas. And if you stimulate it, it might have some effect, but it has nothing to do with aligning the atlas or taking pressure off a brainstem. He said it's all garbage. So I started thinking, all these techniques think they're the best. They all think the other ones are nonsense. But I started thinking there's an important word, and the word is called results. results, results. Because if a patient comes in, let's say it's a woman, she has panic attacks, she has anxiety, she has period cramps, she has digestive problems, she has insomnia, and she has neck pain. I just want to see who's going to fix it. Who's going to fix it? Who is going to take this woman and make her have no panic attacks, be calm, perfect digestion, perfect period, perfect neck, and perfect digestion? Who's going to do that? Who is going to? So if the Thompson doctor can take her and do the leg checks and eat, good. If the CBP doctor can straighten all the curves and make someone have those 5 things go away, good. Then go to see. But they can't. So I started thinking, even, no offense to anyone, but even network, I saw all the nonsense in network. So not to say that network is worthless, not to say that it can't help people with certain things, but I saw so much BS in network, which I could do a whole show on. But anyway, so I started thinking to myself, results. And I started thinking about this guy that I would see every Sunday. And I said, here's this guy. He's a little old man. He's very modest. He doesn't say much, but he gets better results than all of them put together. Because if someone comes to him with like a liver problem, he's like, yeah, I'll fix it up like I'll fix a stiff neck. And he will. And if someone came to any of those other doctors with a severe liver problem, they don't even know where to start. They don't even know where to begin. They have no clue what to do. None. I mean, none. They have no idea what to do. The best they can do, which I said earlier, is say, look, let's relieve your subluxations within this context. You know, it can't hurt, but that's garbage. That's nonsense. That's not fixing anyone's liver. Outside of what I said before, someone adjusts people for 30 years, they're going to get their miracles, so-called miracles here and there. But anyway, so then by the time I reached about 1.5 years at school, now that means for 1.5 years, I'm going every Sunday to this guy, but I'm studying all these things. I'm studying network and this and that. And I see within 1.5 years, I say, okay, I'm done with everything else. I put in my 1.5 years with a very open mind. And then by the time I was in what's called third or fourth quarter of chiropractic school, which means I was there for 2 quarters of what's called prerequisites, like the science classes, and then the chiropractic program, first quarter, second quarter, third. So I was there for about 1.5 years. Then I just dropped everything else, and I started just doing the zone therapy 100%. Now, it's interesting. It's interesting because most chiropractic students in chiropractic school, they certainly don't teach the teachers. They certainly don't adjust the teachers. It just doesn't happen. Maybe there's some exception where some student is friends with one of the chiropractic teachers and they practice on them or whatever, but they're not taking care of them as their doctor. But by the time I was in like 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th quarter, because I knew what I knew from Dr. Brown, the guy in Georgia and my guy in New York, and studying this stuff very diligently, I got better results than, of course, all the students, but all the teachers. And I went to the largest chiropractic school, the worst one in the world. I have no idea, but I went to the largest chiropractic school in the world, period. So they had a very large faculty, and I got better results than all of them as a student because I knew what I knew. And then I had all the famous doctors and teachers at my school coming to my apartment to get adjusted. And I attribute that to this great knowledge that I was studying. Anyway, as time went on, I graduated, opened a very successful practice, had a very successful practice for a long time. And although I learned zone therapy from this direct disciples of Dr. Pete, created zone therapy in 1931, I myself have other influences in healing, metaphysics, martial arts, et cetera, and I altered a little bit zone therapy, and I named it zone technique. And if anyone looks at Dr. Fleet's original book of what zone therapy is, they can see that what I teach as zone technique is quite different. There's many striking differences. Now, in about 2017, I opened Zone School, and this was my thought at the time. You know, I was thinking in about 2017, because I started my practice in the mid-1990s, I said, man, by now, from the mid-90s till 2017, we have had patients fly in from 30 different countries and cities around the world. So people are flying in from Japan, Malaysia, UK, Germany, New York, Chicago, Guam, Hawaii. So obviously these people are coming in because they can't heal anywhere else. They've tried many other chiropractic techniques. They've tried medical doctors, acupuncturists, herbalists, and they're still sick. And I'm not talking with neck and back pain. 90% of my patients on the entrance form came to me over the years for non-musculoskeletal conditions. And I'm not talking about someone who comes in with neck pain and I say, oh, I see you have a thyroid problem, I'm going to help you with that. No, I mean, they come in for their thyroid. They come for that. And of course, there's the 10% that come for neck and back pain, but those 10% that came for neck and back pain, they're pretty and then I said to myself, man, if people are coming to me from 30 different countries and cities and driving long distances, whatever, I said, I should just teach other chiropractors and other doctors and healers how to do this. So in 2017, I created Zone School, which is an online program. It's open to chiropractors, any doctor, any healer, Reiki masters, energy workers, acupuncturists, naturopaths, anyone who's a doctor or healer of any type, even massage therapists, are allowed to join Zone School. And here's what I'm going to tell you now. If this doesn't illustrate these principles, then I don't know what does. But listen to this very carefully, because it's really amazing. So as I said, I teach what I teach to any doctor or healer. And what I teach is the zone technique, which I already talked about, and also the principles of healing, which are not taught like this anywhere else that I'm familiar with. Now, I'm going to make a statement, which is quite a statement, but it's easily true, and I'm going to give an example of it. Here's the statement I'm going to make. A massage therapist in Zone School gets 100 times better healing results than any chiropractor in the world who's not in Zone School, which means take the best chiropractor in the world, AK, SOT, chiropractic neurology, the best chiropractor in the world, upper cervical, and take one of my massage therapists in Zone School, and the results will be like this. And I want to give you an example. There's a guy in Australia. His name is Ray. His last name, if I'm pronouncing it right, is Orkison. I think I'm pronouncing it right. His first name is Ray. He is a massage therapist in Australia. That is the only degree he has, massage therapy. However, he's in Zone School. He's actually in the mastermind program, so he's in a very high level of Zone School. He had someone come to him on a heart transplant list. Guess what? They're not in the heart transplant list anymore. Now, you find me one chiropractor outside of Zone School that will have someone walk in on a heart transplant list, and then they get their heart perfect, so they don't need a heart transplant. It doesn't exist. So that is my evolution. That is what Zone School is. And that is the results of Zone School.
Beautiful, beautiful. And you said very clearly as well, but it's not only the technique, the physical application, because that's one part of it, not to be made less. But then there's the essential part of the principles of healing, that, you know, changing the concept, reaching the other than conscious mind, which is built into Dr. Fleet's work. And you are a master of teaching that in a very easily accessible way. So can you touch ground on your experience in regards to how much that, you know, the certainty of the practitioner in its capacity to change the belief system within the person receiving the care, and what monumental shift that makes to the healing?
Well, you know, it's interesting when you mention like certainty and things like that. A lot of chiropractors, and it's not their fault. Of course, it's not their fault. They're only, you know, they're only at the mercy of what they've been taught. So this is not the fault of chiropractors. But a very big theme in chiropractic is the word intent or intention. You know, but it means nothing. It doesn't mean anything. It means nothing. I hate to break it to the chiropractors. It doesn't mean anything. And the reason it means nothing is because most chiropractors, I would think, have great intent. They want to help their patients. They love their patients. They intend for, but their results are mediocre if they don't understand how healing works. The word is not intent. The word is expectation. Expectation. Now, let me just say this. Let me say this. Zone school and my teaching has nothing to do with religion. Nothing. Meaning in zone school, we have people who are Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu, whatever, in varying degrees of observance of their religion. So zone school has nothing to do with religion at all. Whatever religion someone already is, good, that's great. And whatever level of observance of their religion they have, good. I have nothing to do with that. Not to mention, I'm not even qualified to teach about theology because I'm not a theologian, okay? With that said, I think it's helpful to look at certain religious figures who also were healers so we can learn certain high-level principles of healing from those religious figures. Now, again, what people think about that religious figure in a religious context has nothing to do with this conversation. I'm just saying one can look at a religious figure in a healing context and keep that separate. So with that said, one of the greatest healers we have record of is Jesus. That's a healer that we have record of as an amazing healer. Whatever someone thinks about Jesus in a religious way has nothing to do with this conversation. I'm just saying looking at the healings of Jesus can be very instructive. So let's talk about expectation and confidence, okay? Because we were just chatting about that. So to me, a great example of that is when the story, at least the way the story is told, of course, I wasn't there 2,000 years ago, but at least the way the story is told about Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead is a very instructive story about confidence and expectation. Because the way the story goes is Jesus showed up and said, hey, where's Lazarus? They said, hey, he's dead. He said, oh, it's okay, I'm going to get him up. I'm going to, and they said, no, you don't understand. He's been dead for 3 days. And he said, now, that was the very pivotal moment, because let's just say Jesus said, whoa, he's been dead for 3 days. This is major. This is serious. I got to really pray hard to God that's not going to help. What he did instead, he said, from the way the story goes, he said something like, ye of little faith, step aside. Hey, Lazarus, get up. And he got up, because that's matter of fact, certainty, confidence, and expectation, not intent, expectation. So that is if a healer can really look into that story, it's very powerful for healing. The second story of Jesus's healings that I find very helpful for a healer, and again, putting all the religious implications aside, because anyone can think whatever they want about the religious implications. I'm just looking at a healing implication. There's a story where he was somewhere and he saw some woman, the way I heard the story, and she was very sick emotionally and physically. She had a lot of self-condemnation, didn't like herself, was very upset, very emotionally upset. And of course, that was manifesting in her body also as all kinds of physical problems. And Jesus said to her, hey, your sins are forgiven you. And she said, great. She felt all better. He said, come here. Your sins are forgiven you. Now, all that self-condemnation went away. All that self-forgiveness came in. All that self-love came in. And emotionally and physically, she was healing. Now, there were some people standing nearby, and they said, no. He can't say that. That's between you and God. He doesn't have any authority to say that your sins are forgiven you. And Jesus said, forget about those guys. Forget those guys. And she did forget about those guys, and she stayed with him. She had faith in him, and she accepted that message. Your sins are forgiven you. You're fine. And she healed. So that is a very powerful story, because remember, if she had listened to those guys who said, no, he can't say that. He has no authority to say that, she would have felt as miserable as before. But because she maintained her faith when he said, forget about those guys. No, I'm telling you, your sins are forgiven you. And she accepted that. Of course, she was healed. So healing is very subtle. It's not about where the atlas is or how you do a light touch on someone. This doesn't mean anything. There's very important, high level, and sometimes subtle principles of healing. And that's a couple of examples.
Beautiful thought, yeah. I think that's, in the beginning of our profession as chiropractor, we hear about people getting, everything, healing results for anything and everything. And today it's much more within a musculoskeletal pain base that most people, both practitioners and the general public. So I think there's been a huge shift within the profession, and also what people were willing to receive when it came to results. But you're bringing more of that into the profession now, and for other people that also to really trust that innate capacity for healing that which is within all of us.
Yeah, as far as that goes, it's interesting. The general, D.D. Palmer did not really, from what I understand, and I think I understand pretty well, D.D. Palmer didn't really understand how healing worked. He didn't quite understand, but he inadvertently tapped into some very high-level principles of healing. And I got a picture of him right next to Dr. Fleet, so I'm obviously a big fan of his. With that said, it wasn't his fault, but he didn't quite understand what was going on. But nonetheless, people would come to him for diabetes and epilepsy and syphilis and VD and get better. So his results were spectacular. He was inadvertently tapping into some stuff that he didn't quite understand. I actually, in zone school, explained very clearly exactly what was happening there. With that said, when BJ Palmer, his son, came along, from what I can see, he wanted to show the power of the adjustment. So he wanted to kind of take out all this like metaphysical body, mind, soul stuff, because he wanted to say, look how powerful this is even on a physical level. Now, of course, he wrote an article called, Bigness of the Fellow Within, but that's more like Tony Robbins stuff, just to get, it's more like positive thinking, which is fine. But he took out his father's high-level metaphysical and spiritual stuff. And by the way, one of D.D. Palmer's big influences was a guy who was a theosophist. And if anyone knows about theosophy, and I'm not saying theosophy is good or bad, but it's very heavy-duty metaphysics. So D.D. Palmer was highly influenced by that. If you look at some of the old like logo pictures of D.D. Palmer from back in the day, like it actually says like chiropractic, like biology, theosophy. It actually says that. But anyway, so when B.J. Palmer kind of took the metaphysical out and tried to bring it right back to the physical subluxation, then chiropractic philosophy started getting very confused, because what they said was, they said innate, which is this, power of healing in us. They say innate, is what heals, which I'm not saying is mistaken. And they just said, when you relieve subluxations and innate can go to work, that's what heals people. So what was taught is the reason people are sick is because their bones are out of place, putting pressure on nerves. But when you find out what bones are out of place and you put the bones in place, then this innate can heal. So again, the chiropractic teaching at that time was people are sick because their bones are out of place. And when people get their bones put in place, they will heal. The problem is, anyone who really can think, it's obviously a ridiculous statement to say those things, because if that was true, then how does acupuncture work? How does homeopathy work? How does naturopathy work? How does Christian Science work? The fact is, there's one example after the next with an Ayurvedic medicine out of India for 4,500 years with herbs and diet, fixing every disease under the sun. They're not x-raying anyone. They're not adjusting anyone. They don't care what the atlas looks like. They don't care what the spinal curve looks like. Nonetheless, they're getting healing results with every disease under the sun. So for some chiropractor to teach people are sick because their bones are out of place and they get better because they put their bones in place is obviously ridiculous. And the word ridiculous is too kind. But the point is, I'll just use the word ridiculous. And that's the problem. Chiropractors, they get indoctrinated into this lie. Not lie is too strong a word. Just, I don't even know. It's just this ridiculous idea. And someone says, really? Is it true that people are sick because their bones are out of place and they get healthy because their bones get put in place, then innate goes to work? What about acupuncture? Acupuncture has been around for 2,500 years. They fix every disease you ever heard of. They don't x-ray anyone. They don't adjust anyone. They don't care what the atlas looks like. They don't care what the sacrum looks like. And they feel your pulse. They look at your tongue. That's how they analyze you. They put a few needles in you. They open up the meridians, and every disease that you can imagine heals. So chiropractic went from D.D. Palmer, which was great results, but not quite understanding it, but I still love the guy. There's his picture. Then you got B.J. Palmer, who threw out the metaphysical, wanted to bring it back to the physical, and then taught like this absolutely ridiculous explanation of healing. But someone says, no, but B.J. Palmer got good results. And some people who were doing the atlas adjustment have got great, because they were inadvertently tapping into a healing principle, which I teach in Zone School. Then you have Dr. Fleet comes along and he explains, let me tell you how healing actually works. And he did, and he knew, and his results were unparalleled. And then, of course, we already discussed, that was 1931. And then, of course, I learned what I learned, and I've had other influences in healing and metaphysics, and that has become Zone School and Zone Technique. And to me, the great part is this, because even if someone hears what we're talking about, and maybe they're some type of chiropractor or doctor or healer, and they think like, this is interesting, what Pete's saying, it's interesting, but I do, SOT, or I do upper cervical, and I think I like what I do better than what Pete's talking about. First of all, two things. Number one, fine. I mean, do whatever you want. I mean, fine. But if you're interested in results and don't play games and rationalize and make things up about what results are, there's no question about what results are. This woman has endometriosis. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? She has endometriosis. Now, if she can come to you with your technique, and let's say a month and a half later, now her uterus, ovaries, and cervix are perfectly healthy, well, then you did a pretty good job. You probably don't need Zone School, but chances are you're not going to make that happen. So learn how to give a proper healing image, learn how to balance people out properly, and you can help people with that. Because often what chiropractors do is they will put their this is very sad, but and it's very common, they will put their philosophy in front of the well-being of the patient. For example, let me give you an example. This, again, of course, is an example of a chiropractor who is not in zone school. And again, I'm not saying this applies to all chiropractors not in zone school, but it applies to too many. So they have this philosophy: I'm going to relieve subluxations. I'm not worried about symptoms. Now, by the way, that's not from D.D. Palmer. D.D. Palmer, who wrote The Chiropractor's Adjuster, which is what chiropractic is, in 1910, he had a 55-page glossary in the book with 550 diseases with all their symptoms listed, and he tells you what bone to adjust to fix it. So the whole thing of not discussing symptoms, that's not from him. I don't know what that is. But anyway, so you have a so-called straight, principled, vitalistic chiropractor now, and the patient comes in and they tell them they're having such bad migraine headaches that they want to kill themselves. They don't want to be alive because their head hurts so much. And the chiropractor says, okay, well, let's fix your atlas. We'll do this, whatever. 2 months later, they've been getting adjusted. They have a post X-ray. Everything is straight. The atlas is straight. Everything looks good. And the patient says that they're still having horrible headaches. They still want to kill themselves. And the chiropractor says, well, I've adjusted your subluxations. That's just the way your body wants to express. I mean, what can I do? I mean, I know you still have these terrible symptoms, but I don't really address symptoms. I'm just interested in relieving your subluxations. Now, it's all fun and games until it's your mom. It's all fun and games because then these chiropractors get together and say, oh, these patients, they don't understand chiropractic. They think they don't understand real chiropractic. They have a little team feeling like, yeah, we just relieve subluxations. They don't understand. Okay, like I said, it's all fun and games until your mom calls you up and tells you she wants to blow her brains out with a gun. Then the fun and games are over. Then you send her to Dr. Pete to get her migraines gone. So the point is, it's very common and sad that many, not all, of course, not all, but many chiropractors will put their so-called philosophy, chiropractic philosophy, in front of the patient's well-being. If that patient has headaches, your only job is to fix it. That's it. And if you don't know how to do it, then maybe you can learn how to do it. But anything else is a rationalization that's not helping anybody.
Yeah. Results is the measure of all.
Results, you got it, my man. Results.
So for people that are listening to this or seeing this that are wanting to get someone, get access to a practitioner that doing zone and are certified by you, then they can go to the directory at the Zone School of Healing. And that's continuously growing all over the world.
Yes.
With practitioners. So I will be putting that link below where there's a map and you can see where is the closest practitioner for you to get access to someone that's been taught by Dr. Pete and certified. And then on the other hand, on the Zone School, you can also see for those that are interested, oh shit, I want to add this, I want to do this, I want to learn this, so I can serve those that seek my care even more and get even more phenomenal results. Then you will see the link below for that as well. So both for those that want to learn it from Dr. Pete and also for those that want to receive it. So that's and if you have any questions, are people able to reach out to you and get hold of you on social forums or email, anything you want to share there that we can add into? Great.
Well, a couple of things. Thanks for pointing that out. Again, like was just mentioned, if you are someone who needs healing, you can go to zoneschoolofhealing.com. Again, that's zoneschoolofhealing.com and click on directory and put in your location and see who is certified near you in the world. And like was just mentioned, if you are a chiropractor or a doctor or healer of any type and you want to learn this, it is an online program. go to the same website, zoneschoolofhealing.com, and you can join right on the homepage, and you can start learning immediately. You get about 60 hours of me teaching you online. You will love it. And lastly, if someone has a question, actually also on the website, there's a place that says book a discovery call, And that again, that's not for lay people looking for healing. That's for chiropractors or practitioners who would like to join, but they have a couple questions first. They can book a discovery call, and one of my crew will talk to them and answer any questions they want. And after they have their questions answered, they can decide if they want to join or not.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. So we start to wrapping up the hour. Is there anything else that you feel that this is something that is like, really wants to come through to the listeners here in Scandinavia mainly?
First of all, I have to say that I was in Scandinavia when I was a little kid. We went, me and my mom and my dad and my sister, we went to Denmark, Sweden, and Norway.
Wow.
I think it was about 1977, I think.
Oh.
I was a kid. I had a great time. And then I was in Norway more recently. And I love Scandinavia, quite frankly. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. I really do. I really love it there. Also, I'm a big hockey fan, and I used to play hockey. And you have a lot of good players coming out of Scandinavia. So I have some connection with Scandinavia with that. And all I would say is that just to the practitioners, the chiropractors, or chiropractors or any doctor or healer, remember the word results. Rationalization doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help you or your patients. And if you want to get infinitely better results, join Zone School. I'll help you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's amazing. It's so simple and so straightforward.
It's simple and straightforward, just like Lazarus. Get up. It's just like that. That's get up.
Yeah, it's cool. Thank you, Dr. Pete, taking the time, early morning for you this Friday. And for those listeners, you've got the webpage, so forth, reaching out to Dr. Pete. If you have any questions towards me, you can reach me. You can check my webpage, welledge.se. You can email me at martin.fransson@welledge.se. And I have the links below so you can reach out. And if you have any questions, I'm here for you. So with that, I will end the recording and we'll hang on for a little bit further. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Be well and have an edge, as I say.